Our guest today is the first Hispanic lawmaker Illinois sent to Washington. He is the senior member of the Illinois delegation in the United States House of Representatives. His interest in politics was sparked when he delivered newspapers to the late Mayor Richard J. Daley in City Hall. He was born in Chicago and graduated from Northeastern Illinois University. Our guest today and his wife, Sarita, have two beautiful daughters, Elmira and Jessica, and a fabulous grandson, Luisito. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Luis Gutierrez. Congressman?
Hi, it's Jay. Well, thank you for the very kind introduction. Let me say to all of you, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. To my colleague, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, it's a pleasure to have you and a distinct honor. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's give her another round of applause. I understand there's only one member of the City Council here, but even if it was full with all 50, I'd still say Danny Solis is my favorite member of the Chicago City Council. He's here with us. He's back there. Tomorrow he'll, I'm sure, be successfully reelected to the seat of Alderman of the 25th Ward. Jay and Professor Verde, thank you so much. I want to start off today, and I want you to think about the game of telephone. We all played it as kids. Remember? The first person starts by whispering a sentence or a phrase in someone's ear. Then that person repeats the sentence to the person next to them, and then it continues around the circle until you get all the way back to the first person. And if you started with a sentence like, roses are red and violets are blue, you would very quickly get a few words garbled, and then by the time it had gotten around to 8 or 9 different people, the message would be something like, I arose to the sounds of violence and lady sings the blues. Well, some weeks ago, I feel like I'm trapped in the game of Washington telephone. A week ago, I was on MSNBC talking with the Jose Diaz-Balart about immigration, and I said that Latino citizens who vote do not like it when Republicans orient their immigration policies around deportations, and particularly the deportation of their parents or neighbors or community members who have lived peacefully in the U.S. for years. Here's the exact quote from the MSNBC transcript. Quote, the Republican Party is making a critical mistake. The militancy that will be activated throughout the immigrant community in terms of voter registration, voter participation, voter anger at the Republican Party, I think you will see it in an unprecedented manner. What happens in Washington is that the websites that feed the conspiracy theories, the outrage machine, and the I hate Obama today because of fill in the blank, those guys, they all watch MSNBC. They take the word militancy and slap a headline on it, and it just bounces around the internet from there. Breitbart, which is a right-wing media company that writes about me almost every single day. Seriously, every day. Go to Breitbart. There's Luis Gutierrez. Can't get a word in the Sun-Times or the Tribune, but Breitbart. It's true. I got a reporter from the Tribune. Congressman, I need 15 minutes. I'd like to do this interview. I said, just to show you how gracious I am, I'm going to grant you the interview. I said, because it's a great degree of generosity on my part, since they're not going to allow you to print the damn thing I have to tell you. She called me up the next week and she said, first I thought you were arrogant. Now I know you were simply telling me the truth. just gotta say, unless you know about some scandal. So their headline at Breitbart, here's that. Luis Gutierrez predicts unprecedented militancy among immigrants after amnesty injunction. Fair enough. The story uses the word amnesty 5 times in 7 paragraphs, which is actually below the level for Breitbart average. but it's still somewhat reality-based. Then Drudge or someone else picks it up, and the bloggers and the tweeters get it. And then talk radio guys like Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham get it in on the act, and you get your game of telephone. By Friday, someone who calls themselves a Breitbart contributor, you can check this out on the internet, posted an article at woundedwarrior.com with the headline, Democrat Representative Gutierrez threatens to kill white people over overturn of Obama amnesty. I'm not kidding. It went on to say, quote, he is a leader of Hispanic thugs, and he is threatening to kill you by unleashing them under orders to do so, end quote. Then, no, the game of telephone is not yet over. We got a call on Friday in my congressional office who heard on talk radio that I was telling illegal immigrants to sign up for ISIS so that they can kill Americans. When asked, he said he heard it on ESPN radio. And then it circles back from the fringe to the mainstream. Investors Business Daily said in an editorial that, quote, my call for militancy amounted to, quote, Chicago-style dirty politics and efforts by leftist foreign militants to silence duly elected U.S. representatives doing their job. And that, quote, I am leading, quote, little more than a Cuban-style effort to intimidate elected representatives through mob action from illegal aliens who have no fear and no respect of the law, end quote. Wow. And I thought Investors Business Daily was a respected brand at one point. But they're basing their editorials on, quote, stuff they heard was true on the internet. I will say for the record that I am a supporter of militant democracy, militant voting, citizenship, and civic participation. Imagine that. After all this, and whenever immigration is at the top of the news, my office gets getting calls from people so angry they can barely speak when they call my office. I've been tempted to tell my staff that they should just answer the phones. Press 1 to curse and leave death threats, or press 2 if you want to have a civil conversation about public policy issues with a human being. I have been told to go back to Mexico so many times, I forgot I was born in Chicago. Or that my parents were originally from Puerto Rico. Which Latinos know, we all know the difference. When Washington makes you long for the calm days of Chicago City Council War of the 80s, it has really gotten bad. I admit I have not read the entire internet today, but I doubt that there are headlines that say that Oscar winner Patricia Arquette was calling for killing white men in her Oscar speech about equal pay for women. But maybe I might have missed that. And I rarely see headlines about radical seniors at the AARP or even a group like the Grey Panthers being accused of killing people under the age of 50. But in the context of immigration, when a Puerto Rican from Chicago is told to go back to Mexico several times a day and is accused of violating his oath of office because he wants to reform our immigration laws, to reform them so that we have more law, more order, and more legality, and more people playing by the rules, well, I guess that's just a little different. Nothing I do represents the interests of U.S. citizens and voters in the 4th District of Illinois more directly than making sure their families are not destroyed through deportation, and that the health of the economy and small businesses in my district are not undermined by our broken immigration system. And the reality is that no one has been working harder than I have to help Republican Party resolve this issue and to help them to not commit suicide as a national party, because they're driving away the fastest growing group of citizens in the American electorate, Latinos. 2,000 Latino citizens every day turn 18 in America. 400,000 a year. If we waved a magic wand and cut off all immigration tomorrow and deported every non-citizen, the Republican Party would still be in a very, very deep demographic hole for the next few decades to come. and basing their approach to immigration on deporting moms and dads and shutting down the Department of Homeland Security surely isn't helping them with Latino voters or with anyone else. The last time I spoke here, I was with Congressman Paul Ryan, remember? It was April 2013. And back then, we thought Republicans were going to read the autopsy the Republican National Committee did after the 2012 race and find a way to put forward conservative, pro-immigration policies and break with the wing of their party that is anti-immigrant. As you know, that didn't happen. And part of this whole right-wing thing on the internet is that they want to demonize me because they don't want immigration reform. So actually, anybody that steps up to work with Republicans, they want to demonize them so they won't work with me. They want to make me, a person, one of the few Democrats that actually will work with Republicans, toxic, to the point I won't work with them. They won't work with me. I think that's fundamentally wrong. And over in the House, there is little dispute that we have the same statistics. I have never seen the Democrats so united on immigration issue with labor and civil rights groups and all facets of the Democratic Party on board. And about 1/3 of House Republicans want to do something on immigration. And basically they support, as Paul Ryan told you here, legal immigration. But they're finding it almost impossible to contend with the part of their party that opposes legal immigration. I know it must be uncomfortable for people like our Senator Mark Kirk to stand with Steve King of Iowa, or Lamar Smith of Texas, or Ted Cruz or Jeff Sessions, who strongly oppose legal immigration. Tomorrow, I'll go back to Washington, and the biggest issue coming up is how we're going to get the Department of Homeland Security funded for the next year. The Department of Homeland Security, the people who protect us internally and from external threats, that's where we're going to decide whether we can fund or whether we're going to shut down the government and not fund Homeland Security. If we do nothing, funding will run out on Friday. And the fact is that the most Border Patrol agents, TSA agents, and other law enforcement and national security professionals will go to work on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but they will not get paid. Shame on us. That is going to have a tremendous impact on the economy, and it's going to have a tremendous impact on tens of thousands of families. Families with mortgages, loans, tuitions, electrical bills, right here in Chicago, right here at Midway and at O'Hare. We have run into a political ditch when it comes to funding basic functions of government, and in this case, the immigration issue I've been working so hard on for such a long time. The immigration issue is in the middle of it all. The Republicans can only pass a budget for Homeland Security in the House if it takes action to punish President Obama and punish immigrant families in an effort to make a point about the executive actions the president announced in November. They do not want Democrats to work with them and want the vote to be a partisan as possible. On the other side of the hill, in the Senate, where Republicans also control the agenda, they can only pass a budget if they have 60 votes, and that means they need a bunch of Democrats to work with them. So the Republicans are trying to thread the needle where there is no middle ground, no opening in which to put the thread through. One body demands compromise in order to succeed. The other body sees compromise as a sign of weakness and impurity. So the country, the Border Patrol, the Coast Guard, and all other agencies, they get nothing. Last year, that we agreed to a thoroughly bipartisan budget deal for the Department of Homeland Security. We're just inches away from having a bipartisan agreement in House for immigration reform too. That was just last year. We were just so close. It would not have made any Democrats happy because it was much harsher than the Senate bill in some ways, although, and this is interesting, it would have given some immigrants a much faster way to become American citizens than the Senate bill. And it would have included all sorts of tax measures and restrictions on benefits for immigrants and those seeking legal status. It would have contained some measures on legal immigration and other policies that some Republicans find hard to support. But I am confident that we would have gotten the votes in the last Congress to pass a more conservative House version of immigration reform, and I would have supported it. But we never got the chance because compromise is a dirty word in the House of Representatives. John Boehner supported it, and so did Cantor and McCarthy, and you heard Paul Ryan support it here with a number of key Republican leaders last year. But the minority within the Republican Party that opposes immigration reform, and frankly, opposes immigration whether it's legal or not, were able to keep the House from a vote. They were able to turn the immigration issue into an Obama issue. Republicans are divided on immigration issue between the mainstream of the party and the anti-immigrant wing. But there is one thing that unites all Republicans right now, and that is President Barack Obama. So finally, after John Boehner and the Republicans made it clear they would do nothing on immigration, and after making it, in my opinion, too many political calculations, the president finally did what I've been asking him to do since the beginning of 2011. He took executive action to protect some immigrants, 5 million of them, from deportation. Now the Republicans have become even more unified in the opposition to President Obama, so much that they are coming close to shutting down the Department of Homeland Security. And that brings us to Judge Hannon in Brownsville, Texas. This is a judge that was handpicked to hear the legal challenge brought by the governor of Texas and Republican leaders in 25 other states because he's been very friendly to the anti-immigrant side and very critical of President Obama in the past. Here's what the New York Times editorial page had to say about the judge. Judge Hanson last month invoked a biblical flood in describing illegal immigration to Texas and spoke out aggressively against Mr. Obama's immigration policy, saying, quote, "It endangers America," and quote, "is an open invitation to the most dangerous criminals in society." That's what the judge that heard the Republican case against Obama's executive had already said. You would have thought he would have recused himself. Said, you know, given my feelings about the president and his immigration policy in the past, I was going to let another judge. But no, but they shopped for him. They had 25 states where they could have taken this court case to. No, they went to Brownsville, Texas, a very conservative part, and found the conservative judge they were looking for. And by the most dangerous criminals in society, quote unquote, I believe he was referring to children fleeing violence in Central America who came to the U.S. last year seeking safety and seeking their moms and dads, which is exactly why Texas and the other states picked him. And surprise, surprise, the judge issued an injunction and said, essentially, I have not ruled on the legality of the constitutionality of the president's action, but I'm going to stop all action until I decide. And to be sure, the Obama administration has stopped all actions, and they are preparing to appeal. And today they're filing for a stay of injunction in district court. But it was not the law that the judge ruled on. It was not whether or not the president was doing what previous presidents have done on immigration or on a dozen other issues. The judge didn't rule on that. You can read the 123 pages. It was a statement about states' rights and the idea that if the president was allowed to act, the state of Texas, among others, would be forced, imagine, would be forced to issue free driver's licenses to immigrants who had passed a criminal background check. I don't know, I checked with Jesse White before I came here. We don't issue them in Illinois for free. We don't issue in any of the 50 states driver's licenses for free. But that's what he thought. And the judge, why don't we just tell him, they're already driving, Judge. Why not give them a driver's license? Make sure that they know the rules of the road. Make sure that they get what? Insurance? Because they're already driving. You think you're keeping the state safe because it might cost some money to give them driver's licenses. Now, I just want, just in case, if there's anybody that wants to raise their hand because they got a free driver's license from Jesse White, raise your hand right now. Okay. Oh, that's because they don't give them out anywhere. Even here where we made it possible for immigrants in Illinois, even immigrants without papers in Illinois, to get a license and auto insurance and learn the rules of the road, even in Illinois, we charge $94, and we love immigrants here. So I have been traveling the country getting people ready to sign up and holding community workshops here in Chicago and all over because I think it's just a matter of time before the president is found to be acting within the law. Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson was here with me and Mayor Rahm Emanuel at Rebaño Church on West Division the last day of January. We had a whole church filled up with immigrants, many of them in the country illegally, listening and cheering to the head of the Department of Homeland Security. We had a family there who has lived here for a long time, opened up a family business, and their daughter, Andrea, will be able to apply for deferred action or DACA when the injunction is lifted, and it will be lifted. And her mom and dad, who have also a child here who's a U.S. citizen, will be able to apply in May when applications are made ready for their parents under the President's executive action. In my office, working with the mayor and civic and private agencies right here in the city of Chicago, we are training family defenders to help these individuals assemble all the documentation they will need, submit their fingerprints for a background check, and pay their fees. And Secretary Johnson reached into his pocket. I wish you would have all been there, because this was a moment of American, right, exceptionalism. The Secretary of Homeland Security, after 2 million deportations, a record during the last 6 years, the Secretary J. Johnson talked about what it was that his grandfather died as a black man in America, never achieving his full civil and human rights, and took a pen out of his pocket as the head of Homeland Security and gave it to the family, saying, I may have signed those executive orders with this very pen. I want you to use it now to fill out those documentations and submit it to my department so I can make you right with the law. That's American exceptionalism to me. So I just want to say that that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're trying to cut through it. It's 5 million people. We're not going to deport 11 million people. Can't happen. You can only arrest 400,000 of them given the budget we approve every year. 400,000. That's the best you can do with the money that's granted by the Congress of the United States. Think about that. 55,000 airplanes full at 200 people on an airplane. The jails, the court system, these 5 million American citizen children who would have to be left behind if you deported them. The devastating impact it would have on our society. Those 11 million people are consumers, and they buy a lot of goods and they produce a lot of goods. Everybody in this country knows that 75% of agricultural workers in this nation are undocumented. And we better get around to the reality that our food is going to be picked in foreign lands by foreign hands, or it's going to be picked by foreign hands here in the United States of America. There are no other two ways about this. I just want to end with this just to share with you that, you know, how I view this issue, how as an American I view this issue and other issues. My mom and dad came here in 1952 from Puerto Rico. My mom arrived in New York, my dad in Chicago. Let me tell you something. It wasn't as though when hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans arrived here with them, everybody thought, what a great idea, welcome. It wasn't as though there were newspaper editorials saying, great. You know what they wrote in the newspapers in New York and Chicago about my mom and my dad? That they were coming here to live off the public dole. That's what they wrote about them. They wrote that they were criminals, that they should be suspects. They wrote that they were bringing tropical diseases, and that we should do everything we could to stop their continued migration to the United States of America. That's what they said about my mom and my dad. Well, first of all, they were wrong about my mom and my dad. But because America is such an exceptional nation, they raised their son, and he is now serving in his 12th term in the Congress of the United States. They came to a city, one of the most segregated cities in the nation, and it wasn't the South. They came to a city that Martin Luther King, when he visited here, said what? That he never saw such hatred in the eyes of people as they had seen in the city of Chicago, anywhere in the South. That's the city I was born in. That's the city I was raised in. But because America's an exceptional nation, I'm a member of Congress of the United States today. To say that what? That what happened to my mom and my dad, that the discrimination, the bigotry, and the hatefulness is something that is unacceptable to me. And maybe they didn't have somebody to raise a voice in defense of my mom and dad, but they raised a son to raise his voice for other people who live under similar circumstances. And I will not be silenced until we have a fair and just immigration policy in the United States of America. Thank you very much. Jay. Jay.
If you have any questions, do we have our people here? All right, very good. Very good. Bring them up. All right. Boy, you know you're at the City Club, Congressman, when we hear. Well, the first question, you only put their first name. Wonderful, isn't it? All right, Nora, where are you? Hey, if you don't put your last name down, why are you going to raise your hand? Okay. Please, we go on. Please comment on how we treat detainees, lack of family visits, confinement, waiting for deportation. What'd you set this one up?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't. Let me just say this. Look, here's what I want to do. I want to have a system in which we are not picking up families and destroying families, but destroying gang-infested organizations. I want to set up an immigration system where we go after gang members and not children on our streets. That we don't go from factory to factory, from one workplace to another, looking for people that are trying to work. But that we use our immigration and our resources to go after people that cause you and me and America harm. That we understand that, yes, everybody that comes from another country is a foreigner, but not every foreigner is an immigrant. Immigrants come here to work hard, to sweat, and to toil to contribute to America. So let's distinguish between them. We won't worry so much about who's in jail and detention if we're taking bad people out of our society. The reason this question is important is because we have millions of American citizens, 5 million American citizens whose parents are undocumented. And there should be a way, if Congress won't act, to allow the president to act. I mean, I gotta tell you, President Barack Obama was just so patient, extremely patient with them. Remember, when I came here with Paul Ryan, later on they said, well, we need 30,000 more Border Patrol agents. And what did we say? Okay. They said we had to do it in parts and pieces. We wanted a holistic bill, right? We said, okay, let's start on the pieces, right? They even said you all can't become citizens right away. We didn't walk away from the table. I'm gonna tell you, they are committing a huge mistake. Remember that President Barack Obama's executive order covers the parents of 5 million American citizen children who are never gonna forget. A man came up to me, Dr. Green, Professor Green, you know what he said to me? He said, what did he say? He said, you know what? That stuff about voting, that's nice. I'd like to do that one day. And I'd like to be a citizen like you. That sounds dandy to me. But you know right now what you can do for me, Congressman? Give me a work permit. I don't want the government to feed my family, clothe my family, house my family. I want the government to give me the ability to do that for them. That's all they really want. And they're ready to go through a criminal background check, pay the government in order to get that done. And the rooms are getting filled by the thousands. Everywhere I go across this country, I want everybody in this room to understand something. We were at Our Lady of Guadalupe 2 Saturdays ago at the sanctuary up by where Maryville Academy used to be. Filled 2,000 people. And there I was. You want to talk about American exceptionalism? I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul the day before, right? With one of the Muslim members of the House of Representatives, right? Keith Ellison, a member of the Muslim faith, right? And the next day, I was with Jan Schakowsky, right? And here at 2 Catholic churches, right? With thousands of people cheering us on. That's the kind of thing I like to talk about. That's the kind of greatness I like to talk about, America, when you can bring evangelicals and Catholic and Jews and Muslims together, right? All for what? To guarantee the safety of American families and the safety and the sanity of our immigration system and our economic system.
Is there more than one Muslim congressman?
I think there are 2 members of the Muslim faith, yeah.
Whoa, okay, something to look out for. Well, Lou, you gave a lot of emotional, very great stuff on immigration. These next two questions really have nothing to do with it. Something about Chicago politics.
Oh, okay.
You know, something that you used to be really. Some guy named Jesse Ruiz. Where are you, Jesse? Raise your hand.
Where's Jesse? Hey, Jesse, how you doing?
All right.
It's a good, give him a round of applause. He's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Vice Chair of our Education System, Chicago Board of Ed. Thank you for your public service, Jesse.
You can't beat him. All right, here's the question. Are you ready?
We're not supposed to thank him?
Well, you're thanking him. Very nice. Very nice indeed. You got no opposition. Here we go. Can you please tell us why you endorse Rahm Emanuel over Jesus Garcia in tomorrow's mayoral election? And give us your prediction in tomorrow's election results. I didn't make this up, and look how nice he writes.
Oh, he right. He's a great lawyer, you know? Let me say, first of all, I did not endorse Rahm Emanuel over anyone else, over any of the other candidates for mayor of the city of Chicago. I made a decision almost 2 years ago that I would support Rahm Emanuel for re-election as mayor of the city of Chicago. We went cementing that relationship over the last 2 years. In the beginning, it was supposed to be Toni Prewinkle that was going to run against Rahm Emanuel. And then she didn't run. Then it was going to be Karen Lewis. And unfortunately, she became gravely ill. And it was only after that that Jesus Garcia decided that he would enter into the mayoral race. I had made a decision long time before that, and you can read about it in the newspaper, to be one of the co-chairs of the mayor's campaign before he ever made that decision. So it wasn't even part of the equation. Jesus Garcia is a dear friend of mine. I can't think of anybody in politics that I've been working with longer than Jesus. In 1984, he and I were, he ran against Thembert, who didn't live in the ward, and I ran against Ross Stankowski, who did, for Democratic committeeman, so that we could oust Ed Verdoliak as chairman of the Democratic Party. He won. I didn't. We went on 2 years later to be part of a coalition with Harold Washington to reform city politics and the Chicago City Council, a new majority. It was then 25 to 25. He went on in 92 to go to the Illinois Senate, and I went to Congress. You know, he didn't endorse me in 1992 when I ran for Congress. We were friends nonetheless and worked together nonetheless. I think there's a lot more made to things than should be. But I will say this. I am very, 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 very proud, very, very confident, and very secure in my endorsement of Rahm Emanuel for the following reasons. Number one, if I am going to use as a litmus test the past practices, positions of Democrats when it comes to immigrants, there are very few Democrats I'm going to be able to associate with. Let me just make that clear. I supported Barack Obama for president not once but twice. Voted for him in 2 primaries and 2 general elections in spite of the deportation processes that occurred under his. But nobody questioned why I supported him over his Republican candidate. I'm going to support the best candidate at every turn. But on immigration, I got to tell you, I think I understand some of the politics, but I have to say one thing to everybody here. I know there's this thing about the neighborhoods in downtown and the neighborhoods. But you said I have Luisito. Luisito goes to a public school. Now, he goes to a public school not because we're trying to make a political point that the congressman's grandson goes to a public school. I would never do that to my grandson. I'm going to get him the best education I could possibly get him, because I would be a shitty grandfather if that was not my goal. But you know, Luisito has an extra day of classroom every day, because the mayor made that. And not only that, it's no longer kindergarten through 12 in the city of Chicago. It's kindergarten through 14. Everybody that graduates with a B gets to go on to 2 more years. Is that a downtown thing? Making sure that everybody gets kindergarten, a full day of kindergarten, when before only half the kids got a full day of kindergarten, usually the kids. I don't think that that's something that divides downtown from the neighborhoods. You know, I look at minimum wage and $13 an hour. I don't think that's a downtown issue. I think that's an issue of our neighborhoods. So I look at so many, and in immigration, I want to let everybody know, city of Chicago is the friendliest immigrant city in the nation, and Rahm Emanuel has had a lot to do with that. He made sure that we no longer cooperate with immigration authorities when it comes to the deportation and separation of our families by using city structures. Nobody can be asked when you enroll your kid in a school or seek out health care because you're injured, what your immigration status, and that's the law in the city of Chicago. I think that's something. Only in the city of Chicago can you graduate from high school with a B average and be guaranteed that you're going to be able to go on to your next 2 years of college for free. Only in Chicago, even if you're undocumented. So one thing is to say you're for the dreamers. Another thing, we have created a situation, and lastly, I'm going to tell you something. He has been a very good friend and ally to me politically, yes. Every time I've asked him for his advice and his wisdom and his knowledge about how that White House works and how better I could accomplish my goal of getting this administration to issue those executive orders, he has been there at my side to get it done. Now, I got to tell you something. If you know that immigration is important to me, and you know that he has helped me so immensely in this cause and has been there by my side, I think I have a responsibility to tell people about that. No one did more than I did 4 years ago to stop him from becoming mayor of the city of Chicago. But he won the election. And I thought it was my responsibility to do what? The person who gets the most votes in a democracy wins. And you should respect that judgment of the people. And for 4 years, as soon as he got elected, we did this to the board. We took an eraser, we erased it, and we started fresh. And I'm happy. And tomorrow, I believe he is going to win without going into a runoff tomorrow. I think tomorrow he will get the 50% plus of the vote by putting together a coalition that includes people from downtown, from the west side, south side, north side, from every demographic group of the city of Chicago. And I think that's a tribute to the city of Chicago, given we're no longer thinking we're race, right? We're ethnicity, where your national origin is the center piece of people who either detract or support you for election to public office.
You know, Congressman, this is being recorded, and if Rahm Emanuel wins tomorrow, as I predict he will, we'll make sure he gets a copy of that last conference. That's probably a better defense of what he's up to than he's given himself. That was pretty impressive, wasn't it? We have another question here from Bruce Handler dealing with the number of police in Chicago. I'm not sure this is congressional stuff, so we'll, if you want to see the congressman afterwards, we don't want to change the thing. I just want to say, as someone who spent his whole life writing about this stuff and writing about this guy, just keep in mind that his Latinos, Hispanics coming to Chicago, not getting exactly a parade, that affected almost everybody in this room. Nobody from wherever you, remember, we all come from someplace else, unless you trace your ancestors back to some tribe living in South Dakota. We all came from someplace else, and no one opened their arms. Irish, Jews, Italians, everyone had to start at the bottom and work their way up. And it's just been our history. So what Louis is doing is in the spirit of what made this country really great, because we are a nation of immigrants, whether we like it or not. All of us come from someplace else. So let's give him a big round of applause.